Hey, everybody. Welcome to Two Geeks and a Microphone Short Blast. We're just going to give you something that popped up and we just want to talk about it. Wah, wah. So we're going to talk about George Lucas made some comments at the Cannes Film Festival. We've got some clips from other places.
I got some words. Yeah.
So what we're going to do real quick is we're going to show a clip. The first one's going to be from Asmongold, who does a clip of a clip, I guess is the best way to say that. So I want to give credit where credit's due. And then we've got a news brief as well. So I'm just going to get this started and we are going to have some discussion. I'm just saying kind of thing. All right, I'm going to share my screen. And here we go.
George Lucas rejects critics who think his films are all white men or sexist.
What's this?
You know, they would say, well, it's all white men. Most of the people in there are aliens. And the idea is that you're supposed to accept people for what they are, even if they're big and furry, or whether they've got they're green and whatever. The idea is all the people are equal. As he said, there's no women in the movies. Who do you think the heroes are in those films? What do you think Princess Leia was? She is the head of the rebellion. She's the one that's taking this young kid that doesn't know anything and trying to save the rebellion. She's the hero of the movie. When I sold the company, I just sort of said, I had a baby girl, I got married, I had a different life, because I knew it would take me another 10 years to make those films. And I was 69, and I said, I'm not gonna be doing this when I'm 79. It's time to let go and let somebody else do it. Then they started other ones when I sold the company, and they a lot of those ideas that were in there sort of got lost. But that's the way it is. If you give it up, you give it up.
So
let's talk about this part real quick. Accused of whitewashing, which I'm like, how in the world is that accused of whitewashing? Because he's right.
Well, whitewashing is when you take black or characters of color, I should say, because I mean it could be different races, and
right,
making
if they're
them
Oriental, or if they're European, or
right.
if they're African, or if they're South American, and just saying, we're going to make them all white people.
Which he never did that. I mean, first of all, those were his movies. You know, it's not like he was taking somebody else's movies, changing the characters and putting white characters in place of other races. So whitewashing is completely the wrong term to be using for him to begin with. That doesn't make any sense. The females, the lack of females in the original trilogy. Okay. Is there a lot of females in the original trilogy? No, there's not. However, one of the biggest stars and probably the biggest hero, as he said, is Princess Leia. Princess Leia is the original rebel, you know, and that's the way everyone looked at her back then. She was the rebel, and everyone loved Princess Leia. There wasn't anyone who did not like Princess Leia. So to say that there's not enough female representation, I disagree with. I mean, one of your strongest characters is a female.
Yeah. I really appreciated the fact that what he was saying is like, look, everybody's equal. There wasn't any kind of situation where you were saying that one person was better than another. And I think that even speaks to the different characters that he uses, all different kind of backgrounds, different viewpoints, with all the different aliens that were there.
I do think something was cut out of that, because I seen another headline where he mentions that same thing, that all the races were equal. However, he added a caveat to it, because he said except for the droids, because there is a particular I don't want to say
hatred
race
for droids. Yeah, we don't take their kind here in New Hope.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
And he did put that in purpose. However, I think it has its place and its reasoning behind it. You know, especially like you get into the story of like and granted this is Disney Star Wars, but if you get into the Mandalorian hates droids because his family's killed by droids, by the battle droids during the war. So I mean, I think it has its place. I think it makes sense. But like he also said in the interview, no matter what, you're not going to get around quote unquote racism. There's always going to be some kind of bigotry, within
any story, because it's part of the conflict of the story, and it's real life. It happens all kinds of different ways, whether or not, I'm prejudiced,
whether we like jerks. It or not.
I don't care what your skin color is. You're a jerk. I don't like you.
Well, this is true. Your skin color makes no difference to me.
It's the content of your character. And if you're a jerk, I don't like you.
Exactly.
Well, here, let's hit the second one, because I think that the second clip that we have also kind of coincides with this. So the second clip, everybody, is one that a news outlet has done, or I would assume a news outlet kind of a thing. And so I got
to say, I'm kind of like George Lucas. I like my Diet Coke.
All right, here's the next one. And this is bridging that gap of what people are saying about the films, because we already saw a little bit of that we talked about. But then it's like, now we're talking about the new era.
George Lucas gave a critical take on Disney's sequel trilogy movies, stating that the new corporate bosses got a lot wrong. In an interview at Festival de Cannes, George explained, "I was the one who really knew what Star Wars was, who actually knew this world, because there's a lot to it. The Force, for example. Nobody understood the Force. When they started the other ones after I sold the company, a lot of ideas that were in the original sort of got lost. But that's the way it is. You give it up, you give it up." With George being one of the largest single shareholders of Disney, it becomes a rare sight to see him be critical of the company and their films. So this must come as a relief to particular fans. The originals were inspired by westerns, samurai films, World War II, classic cars, and religious meditation practices, whilst the sequels were simply inspired by Star Wars itself. George, in the past, has kept his opinions very quiet on the sequel films after the backlash from his white slavers comment in 2015. The last comments we've had from him thereafter was that The Force Awakens had nothing new, and there wasn't enough visual or technical leaps forward. And his opinions on The Last Jedi was, it was beautifully made, thus making his comments at Cannes extraordinarily rare. For more Star Wars shorts, check out this one, appearing on the end screen now.
All right, so...
Okay, so
I know you got some words.
Yes, I do, because he's like he said, nobody knows Star Wars like him. Exactly, he wrote it. He is the author. He is the maker. When it comes to Star Wars, so he's right. Nobody knows Star Wars the way he does, and Dave Filoni will tell you that too. And Dave Filoni was handpicked by George, and in my opinion, trained up by George to take over George. Is what I believe Dave Filoni was there for. And then I like his statement when he said nobody understood the Force. If you go back and watch some of the recent documentaries, there was one in particular, and I can't remember which one off the top of my head, but he has discussed a meeting that he had with some of his contemporaries, which would have been oh my gosh, Steven Spielberg and Martin Scorsese, to name two of the big ones. And he actually had them preview an early copy of Star Wars: A New Hope, which, by the way, it was just Star Wars back then, not Star Wars: A New Hope. He had them preview it, and the first thing Martin Scorsese said, "What is this? What is this Force stuff? Get rid of that crap. I don't understand it." He's right. He's the only one that understood it. And guess what? The Force is the main piece in the entire Star Wars, saga. Without the Force, Star Wars is nothing. It's just, who cares? It makes it the same as everything else. The Force was something that was different. It surrounds us, it binds us.
Right. Yeah, he mentions Francis Ford Coppola, Walter Murch, Phil Kaufman, John Milius, George Kuchar. I'm not probably saying that right, and Martin Scorsese. Those are the
Yeah.
filmmakers he notates.
And if I remember right, it was Martin Scorsese who came to him and said, "George, get rid of this Force crap. I don't understand it. I don't get it." Well, and then you had everyone telling him, "Hey, the Wookiee needs pants too."
Right. That walking furball, walking carpet.
Right. Why does the big Wookiee not have pants? Well, because he's an animal. That's why.
Yeah.
Does your dog wear pants? I mean, come
At
on.
Halloween.
Have you ever seen a bear wearing pants?
That's funny. I will say this though. It's interesting that we're getting we don't get much from George as far as his viewpoint on what's happened after the Disney takeover, but you get little tidbits here and there, and it really makes you think he really isn't thrilled about how it is, but also understands that he did let it go. That was interesting. You let it go. You let it go.
I do think he regrets it. I honestly think he regrets it. Those were his babies. They really were. And that's a hard thing to give up. And once you had the control that he had, I mean, I'll admit George surrounded himself with yes men. That is for sure. You know, during the first trilogy, he didn't have as many of the yes men. During the second trilogy, he made sure everyone around him was a yes man to him. That may not have been the right approach to everything. Maybe he could have gotten a different product had he not done that and had some interesting feedback to come back.
He's the leader. It's his vision. I have no
I
problems
agree.
with him. Yes, man. Just make it
No,
happen.
I don't.
They did. I agree with you. Yeah.
Right. So yes, he did surround himself with yes men, but again, it's his product. He created it from the beginning. And something I really want to push back on. And we couldn't find it in the interview per se, but there's been articles over the last few days how George has commented on Hollywood and how he has stated that Hollywood is out of ideas. And I've seen a lot of people who are like, well, George is a hypocrite because George did the same thing. And I got to push back on this idea. I disagree that George did the same thing, you know, and I'm hearing stuff like, well, he stole from Kurosawa. He stole from Seventh Samurai. He stole from this. No, he didn't steal anything. He took ideas and
he took a plot device.
Right.
But made it his own.
And made it his own. Now, Star Wars is completely original, though. You know, were some of the ideas borrowed here and there to make the bigger puzzle? Yes, they were. In fact, if you look back at the old documentaries, which I love the old documentaries back in the day, they were incredible. And they talk about the making of the dogfights between the X-Wings and the TIE fighters. I mean, he literally took World War II film footage and basically superimposed the X-Wings and TIE fighters to get the whole swooping of the airplanes and stuff, and get that same look in his battles and everything. Is that stealing? I don't think so. I don't believe that's stealing. That's inspiration.
Well, I mean, from a storytelling standpoint, yes, he used the Seven Samurai Magnificent Seven plot device, but he also threw in Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey, which a lot of people do. A lot of stories take all those. You know, everyone thinks, oh, they're just creating these stories. If you really take a hard look, take writing classes, go in there or ask ChatGPT if you want, you know, the whole thing of, hey, what's a storytelling device? They'll tell you Hero's Journey. They'll tell you these other things, that these other styles of creating stories. And that's all it is. There's a framework to it behind it. And then once you get exposed to it, you begin to see it like, oh, it's not that they stole it. They're using a framework, and that's okay.
Exactly.
But what made George Lucas so different is no one had done the special effects framework that he had done at the time in 77.
Oh no! Everything
it was such a unique take. on those frameworks no one else had done.
Look, they specifically designed camera rigs to get specific shots of the X-Wings and the TIE fighters. You know, they didn't exist. That did not exist. That was all ILM. ILM did all that. And when you go and dig into the things that they did, it's actually pretty incredible. You know, George Lucas was on the forefront of a lot of cutting edge technology. You know, even with the prequels, you know, everyone dogs the prequels, but Attack of the Clones was the very first film ever filmed 100% in digital. No other film had ever been done before that. And George Lucas said, look, we have this technology now. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time. We're going to push the technology forward. And that's what he used his films for a lot of times. It was about pushing technology forward. If you ever notice, DVDs didn't really take off as well until Star Wars came out on DVD, you know? And Star Wars had to get into the Blu-ray thing. And then all of a sudden people, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, Star Wars is coming out on Blu-ray. Okay. Well, I want the latest and greatest. Now you can argue you're not getting the latest and greatest because you do have George's, his re-edits and all that good stuff, but that's a whole different argument. It's just a completely different argument. And I have my issues with some of those, retakes that he did too. I wished he wouldn't have went back and messed with that. But overall, I defend George. I think a lot of people sell him short. Is he the best? Is he the best
dialogue writer? No.
Right. No. No, he's not. He is not the best dialogue writer. I totally agree. But where George stands out, one, it's his imagination and his storytelling. Imagination and storytelling for George is the big thing. Again, in those old documentaries, I loved it when he's walking through the creature shop and he's looking at the different creatures and he goes, I like that. No, that one's no good. Can you take the head of that one and put it on the body of that one? I mean, he just walks through and he's got this vision and he's just boom, 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 boom. You know, not a lot of people have that. And I think people sell George short because of his lack of script writing. And I don't think it's a fair judgment to him. You know,
well, here's the thing. Everybody's at some point along the way. Like for me, I'm just now getting in the last couple of years, getting into storytelling, learning more about storytelling and things like that. I'm not an accomplished novelist or anything like that. Not yet and stuff, but I'm having a good time. And the thing about George is he may not be perfect or an incredible writer, but by golly, I have a good time. I love Star Wars.
Exactly. That was the thing. You know, it was such a big part of my childhood. You know, I lived Star Wars every day, you know, from the time I was 7 years old till 53, you know, I'm still enjoying it. So, I think George has done a great job. And if you look at what he's done to advance technology, I think that you'll see
the filmmaking industry. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He's moved the film industry forward. But I agree with him when he says Hollywood is out of ideas. They are completely out of ideas. Because they're not doing what George did where they're taking inspiration. They are just remaking stuff.
I just saw I just saw the title, so I haven't flipped through the news thing yet on it, but that Disney announced they're going to remake The Incredibles.
No way. Why in the hell would you do that?
Right. Why? Just continue it on. Or
well, I know why. I know why, because The Incredibles sold so much and they don't have any more ideas. They can't come up with anything new. And The Incredibles was great. It was, oh my gosh, it was so different at the time. There was nothing like it. And I remember, I'm a big fan of Toy Story. And I remember they were coming out with Toy Story 3, and I'm sitting there going, why don't we have Incredibles 2? This doesn't make any sense. You guys are sitting on the Incredibles story, and you're just pumping out more Toy Story stuff. Come on, the Toy Story is finished. It was technically, it should have been done with 2. It really
should have been done with 2. 3 was okay.
Not that I didn't like 3. I enjoyed it, but part of that's out of nostalgia, and I just enjoy Toy Story. But let's face it, 1 and 2 are the best. That you're never going to top those 2. There's no way. Yeah. Where Incredibles, you had a perfect opportunity to build off of the first one a couple years after you did the first. It took them 10 years, 12 years.
I don't remember how long it took them.
Yeah, it took them forever, and the sequel was good. It was good. I still think the original is the best, but I don't know. Disney, what the hell are you doing over there? You guys need to wake up. I agree with George. Not just Disney, all of Hollywood. They're all out of ideas. They're just rehashing the same crap over and over again. That's all they're doing. So I disagree when people are like, "Oh, well, George is a hypocrite." No, I totally disagree with you. He is not a hypocrite. He is right on this one. And you can look at the movie sales and see he's correct, because ticket sales are not where they used to be, because people are not going out to see these movies. That's all there is to it. Yeah. So to say George is a bigot or whatever,
out of touch, or a hypocrite. Hypocrite was the word.
Hypocrite was the word I was looking for. Sorry. To say George is a hypocrite, I think you need to stop and look at the movie sales before you start throwing stones at George Lucas.
Yep. There you have it. So, and there you are.
That's my take. That's all anyway. That's all I got.
No, I concur. Some people just want to bring someone who's successful down, and I think that's some of it. And I think he has every right to give his opinion on stuff, and he's been pretty quiet. I mean, you think it's been years. I mean, we've already had the whole sequel trilogy already, and it's been like he's remained pretty quiet, which tells me he really doesn't like it. But anyway, that's my point. That's my opinion.
Well, the fact that he's only showed up, so he showed up at the premiere of The Force Awakens. And I got to admit, a lot of people were super excited about that premiere. So I get that. I mean, and he was kind of obligated to show up to that. So I think his hand was a little forced to see what I did there.
I see what you did there.
I think his hand was a little forced on that. Other than that, I think the only thing he showed up for is he showed up for some of the Mandalorian stuff. And I think he genuinely likes a lot of the Mandalorian stuff. But again, Dave Filoni is heavily involved in that. And I believe he showed up at some of the Ahsoka stuff too. And I think he enjoyed that. Again, you're talking about a character he created there. Mandalorian he didn't create, but Ahsoka is his baby. So I can see him wanting to show up for that and say, hey, you got to do my character right. Now, it could be argued, whether that was the best version of Ahsoka or not. I agree. But I think those are the only things that George really has supported of the new Star Wars. I don't think he's supporting anything. And let's face it, Disney did him dirty. They said, hey, you need treatments for the next 3 movies. And he said, okay, I'll give you treatments. And he gave him treatments, and they just went, we ain't doing this. It's like, really? Well, why did you make me do that work if you're not even going to use my work, So
just to make
I would like
to
that
when we use it.
What was that?
Just to make them feel good. Like, oh, we'll pretend that we're going to use them, and we'll have them blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Right.
Well, I stand on the side of George Lucas. I still believe that George is an innovator, and
Mhm.
a heck of a storyteller. I really do.
Yeah.
Is he a script writer? No. No, he's not a script writer at all. And he's probably not the best director out there either, but
Hey, but he's out there doing it.
well,
You
I don't
what
know
mean?
if he's doing it now.
Well,
Is he doing anything
was
now?
out there. He was out there doing it. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Sure.
people can be armchair quarterbacks all they want till you're out in the game, kind of thing. And he was out in the game.
Oh, he did make another comment that I wanted to say something about, because when he said, yeah, I was 69 and yeah, it would take 10 years to make those movies, and I just couldn't do that. Well, he said the same thing after he finished Return of the Jedi too, and then he turned around and did the prequels. So, I mean, it was almost the same thing too. I'm getting too old to do this. I'm getting too old for this crap. Murdoch, I'm too old. Well, I would like to see George come back into the fold somehow. I really would. Star Wars could use his input, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Agreed. All right, man. Well, hey, everybody, thanks for joining us. We're wrapping up because we're right at the half-hour mark and stuff. But thank you so much for being here as part of our really quick. We had to give an opinion on something.
Well, you know what they say about opinions, though, don't you?
Something like that. But hey, be sure to check out our website at twogeeksmike.com, www.twogeeksmike.com. And we will see you next time. Mike, you want to sign us out?
All right. You kind of caught me off guard on this. Sorry. Over and out. And
well,
what did I play that for?
That's all fine.
Just over and out. May the force be with you.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye.